and welcome to our Legislative Lowdown for the 2022 legislative session. I'm here with Jen Kingland, our rock star IAR lobbyist, who's going to give us the rundown on what happened this kind of unusual legislative session.
Right.
So, session went a little longer than usual this year. It was a bit abnormal, and you've been up there for, what, 26 years and haven't seen anything like it before, really?
No, it was. It was an interesting legislative session. It was a long legislative session with a few breaks here and there. But nevertheless, they did adjourn just a couple of days ago. You're really getting this news fresh. So, yes, here we are to give you a little bit of a recap.
Awesome. So there was a lot of work in the interim when we looked at real estate teams, and so that was something that we knew we wanted to pursue this legislative session and really saw some success. So do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So real estate teams are not defined in current code, so that's where we started with our legislation. So the legislation basically does two simple things. It defines what a real estate team is, meaning two or more agents working under the same brokerage. The second part of the legislation pertains to advertising. So when a licensee, an individual licensee or a team advertises, they will have to conspicuously display the name of the brokerage either immediately preceding or immediately following the name of the individual licensee or the broker. So this legislation goes into effect on July 1st, but the advertising portion will not be applicable to anyone until December 31st of 2022. So you have time to adjust for any signage or any business cards or business, type of advertising that you may need to do. So December 31st is the date that you'll need to remember for that. But typically, so it will just be your brokerage conspicuously displayed before or immediately after your name as an individual or as a team. Yeah.
Awesome. So the cool part about our jobs is we also get to work with a lot of other groups and associations up at the State House, and so we got to work with some great organizations this year, including on the groundwater hazard statement bill.
Correct. So groundwater hazard statements have been a topic of concern for a lot of years. We've talked about it for the last 3 years. As you know, when you're in a city or in an urban area, that groundwater hazard statement, all of the boxes are pretty much checked no in most cases. So we had talked about a couple of years ago, is this form still really necessary in most cases, in most transactions? And we had those conversations during the interim with the County Recorders Association, the Bar Association, the Bankers Association. So fast forward to this session, what legislation was introduced stated that the groundwater hazard statement only needs to be filled out if there are one of those 5 or 6 requirements on the groundwater hazard statement. Otherwise, an acknowledgement will be checked at the top of the deed stating that there is no known groundwater hazard. So we kind of get the best of both worlds, we hope, where the seller is still acknowledging on the deed that there is no groundwater hazard present, but then also if there is one present, that statement will still need to be filed with the county recorder. But otherwise, it will just be handled through the deed.
That's going to be great. That's going to make a lot of realtors' lives easier. So we're excited to see that one go through.
Yeah, we hope it's a simplification of the process. Yeah. Look forward to the feedback on that.
Yes, absolutely. So we saw some great legislation go through, but we also were able to stop some pretty harmful legislation that was brought up, especially relating to licensees. So if we could talk about that a little bit too.
Right, and that is kind of something that we've also been looking at the last couple of years. Legislation is introduced every year, it seems like, dealing with license laws. And the trend the last few years has been trying to make license laws more uniform, whether it's continuing education or background checks, you name it, any of the things that deal with licenses. They've been trying to make it more uniform across the scope of all licenses. So whether you're an optometrist, whether you're an architect, whether you're a real estate licensee, and go down all of the categories, they are trying to create more uniformity and break down barriers to entry for employment is how it's being described. Obviously, we want to break down barriers to employment. We would like people to be able to, in the right way, with the right education, do whatever career they would like to do. The problem with some of this legislation that we've seen is trying to box everyone in one category gets difficult. Obviously, nursing is very different from real estate, and we need to acknowledge it and acknowledge those differences while at the same time keeping our professions whole for our clients, whole for our constituents, and everyone that we are trying to help through the process. So with that, during this legislative session, we made sure to make it clear that real estate is great. This profession, very few professions are the only requirements to be 18 and to pass your pre-license courses and then get that license with a broker. So we take pride in that, but it takes a lot of education because I don't think a lot of the legislators and the other groups that work on these issues really understand just how great this profession is for anyone who's willing to work hard and kick some butt. Can I say that? Kick some butt.
So of course we couldn't do all that we do up at the State House without all of our amazing members. This year we had a phenomenal turnout at our Hill Day back in February. So we had over 200 members from across the state attend, and your advocacy truly makes a difference. These legislators love hearing from constituents, hearing your stories, and it truly makes an impact that they can see that the work they're doing impacts you in your daily lives.
Correct. It's our favorite day. It's our favorite day during the legislative session when all of you show up and you're advocating for your profession, for your clients. And so it's just really an impactful day, too, for the legislators to hear from you.
Yes, absolutely. They call us a powerhouse up there. We kind of take over the Capitol on our Hill Day. So it's awesome to see the turnout that we do from our members.
Correct. Yeah.
And also want to thank all of you who tune in to our weekly legislative updates. It's fantastic to hear your feedback. Thank you to the committee, specifically our chair, Jennifer Jansen, who did a phenomenal job leading us this year. So thankful for her and her leadership, and just looking forward to what we can accomplish next session. So Jen, do you want to touch on what we're thinking for future session?
Well, we'd like your input. What are you seeing that's not working well in the business? Do you think there's changes that can be made through the legislative process? This is the time of year where, although we just finished session, we need to kick up again and find the issues that we need to raise next year during the legislative session. But there are a couple that we know that we're looking into. The primary one probably deals with homeowners associations and getting some rules and regulations on the books for homeowners associations, because right now, as I've said before, it's kind of the wild, wild west out there. HOAs are not mentioned really in the code, and we might need to set up some parameters for homeowners associations and just some guidelines so that our private property rights and our clients are well represented too. Yeah.
I think that's great. Yeah, we love to hear your feedback. In the interim, coming up, we have the primary elections, which are super important. So June 7th, make sure to get out there and cast your ballot and make your voice heard. So we're excited to see the results from that and moving ahead to next session and making sure your voice is heard at the State House. So thank you so much, Jen. We really appreciate you coming in and filling us in and giving us the lowdown about everything that happened this year.
Yes, and if you haven't met Greta, she's outstanding, smart. Please email either of us on any of this stuff. So thank you.